So my name is Crystal. I am the Tutoring Center Director at LA Pierce College, and I'm also a coordinator for the California Community Colleges Success Network, or 3CSN. And 3CSN is a statewide professional learning network that hosts this wonderful gathering. We have this gathering every Friday online from 3 to 4:30. Where we just highlight the practices and amazing thoughts and experiences of different peer educators and peer educational professionals from all over the place. So we're talking about supplemental instruction leaders, we're talking about tutors, embedded tutors, we're talking about coaches and mentors, we're talking about faculty and staff, and everybody in between, everybody who has a hand in learning assistance and peer education. All are welcome here, and we just sort of explore a different aspect of that student support every week. So each week this semester, we have a different group of folks highlighted who are coming in and talking about a practice that works well for them or a topic that is of deep interest for them. And this week, our workshop is going to be facilitated by three amazing peer educators who will introduce themselves in a moment. And these three amazing peer educators are going to walk us through an activity called a Read Together, where we will both learn a routine that we can use in our classrooms, SI sessions and tutoring sessions and mentor sessions and coach sessions. And not only will we learn the routine, but we'll also learn about a topic that's super close to all of our hearts, and that is student motivation. So with no further ado, I would love to introduce Lindsay, and Ari, who will be hosting us today. Take it away, rock stars.
Yay! Thank you, Crystal, for the really warm welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay, and we're going to be talking about student motivation. And this is our team. So you got a long introduction from Crystal. Crystal can wave again. My name is Lindsay. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a CSUN college counseling graduate student. I also have like 700 other jobs and hats that I put on. But my primary work is at Pasadena City College as a success coach. And I also am a former philosophy and biology tutor from LA Pierce College. So I've definitely been in the peer education realm for a long while. We also have Ari. Ari uses any pronouns, and they're a statistics tutor at LA Pierce College. Go ahead and wave, Ari. And then we also have Lindsay Ann. She uses she, her pronouns, and she is a 3CSN intern and former child development and biology tutor. Go ahead and wave, Lindsay Ann. So that is our team for today. Before we get started on student motivation, which I know is a really exciting topic, we just want to kind of lay the foundation. So definitely get ready to participate. You've got a really awesome action bar at the bottom that allows you to, of course, use the chat, and many of you already have. Also in that action bar, you can raise your hand and use reaction buttons. These are just different ways for us to communicate, ask questions, and that kind of thing. Some goals today for today that we are going to hopefully accomplish by the end of this session is firstly identify some text-informed themes related to student motivation. So as Crystal mentioned, we will be doing a read together today. After that, we will be getting into breakout rooms and discussing these motivation-related themes and how that connects to peer education. And then finally, we're going to describe how we're going to apply those themes to our practice. So not only reading, but also thinking, how does this fit into the work that we do? Some community agreements, just so that we kind of understand how the session's going to go. Of course, we want you, as we mentioned, to be ready to read, reflect, and also discuss student motivation. So start, pulling out some of those issues or great successes with students and motivation. Be ready to support and affirm each other. Your questions, your confusions, your ideas. We really want to make sure that this is a very kind space, a very welcoming space for everyone to be brave and really share whatever is on their mind in terms of student motivation. We want you to try and cultivate that empathy and human connection. Of course, the chat is a great place to do that, and also in the breakout rooms when we go into them later. That's a great way to just check in with folks, see how they're doing before you jump right into the material. We're also going to be, since we're going to be doing breakout rooms, we want to make sure that those breakout rooms are really active and exciting. So for folks who are not able to participate, that's a-okay. We know that everyone's kind of doing different things and are showing up in different capacities. So if you happen to not be able to participate today in the breakout room, please tell Crystal. You can just select the private message and let her know. And then finally, of course, interact, use those reaction buttons, the chat button, and so on. And with that, let's get our brains ready. So we are going to be using a KWL chart today, and I am going to pass it over to Ari to talk about what that is. All right, Ari, take it away.
Thank you. I love talking about KWL charts. Okay, so what is a KWL chart? It is a super fun tool, at least in my opinion, it's fun, that helps you organize your thoughts, and it's also used as an icebreaker and a guide for a learning session. So the chart has 3 columns. The K column is what you already know about the topic that you're talking about. The W is what you want to know, and L is what you've learned. So at the start of a session, students will fill out the K and W columns, which helps us as peer educators kind of gauge where exactly they're at and where the student stands with the topic, and gives us like a foundation to build off of or build onto. And then we return to the chart towards the end of the session to fill out the L column and recap the main takeaways from the session. Next slide, please. So yeah, let's take a sec to get familiar with this tool. Here's what it can look like, as well as some examples of what someone might write in each column. So in the no column, you might write something like, I know that I'm most motivated when the end is in sight, like when I have a deadline coming up or when I'm almost finished with a task. Or in the W column, a question like, when my students just come in for extra credit and don't care about the material, how can I get them to care and try? In the, oops. And then in the learned column, something like, I learned to build some early successes so that students can feel that sense of accomplishment and then build up to harder tasks. In the link in a sec, you'll find a chat to our shared KWL chart for this workshop. Take like 3 minutes to think about your Ks and 5 minutes to think about your Ks and Ws with regard to the role of peer educator, as well as the topic of student motivation. So these can be your personal experiences or things you've seen among your students, and then decorate our shared KWL chart with those thoughts and questions. I'm going to set a timer, but any questions before we start?
Definitely take a look at what other folks have written about motivation in the K column and some of their other questions in that W column. And again, we'll return back to this toward the end of the session to kind of see, after we've had discussion, done some reading, what have we learned? So with that, feel free to continue adding if you'd like. For now, we are going to hop on over to a text set, and let's see what a text set is. Hey, Lindsay, what's a text set?
Thanks for the introduction, Lindsay. So we're gonna, now that we've talked a little bit about motivation, we're gonna talk about what text sets are and how they kind of relate to motivation, student motivation. All right. So in a nutshell, text sets are these articles that you've picked that students will be able to get to read and discuss in pairs and in a group. So why use a text set? Well, they encourage reading stamina and fluency because students are picking these articles by their choice. It really focuses on that student-centered learning, and it, helps them with their independence because, like I said, they got to pick this article and it piques their interest. And so you, as the educator, are acting more as a facilitator in the discussion. And so how we go about in doing these text sets is first you create a text set, you pick some articles that you're going to use that you want students to read, and then students are going to be able to pick one of the texts and then they're going to spend some time looking over it. And then after a couple minutes, they're going to pair up to discuss what they've read, any golden lines, things that stuck out to them. And then afterwards, they're going to have a group discussion where they talk about what they've learned and what takeaways they had from it. And so here we have on the left side are different characteristics of a text set, right? So there are different choices and entry points depending on, the articles that you put in there, right? So there's something for everybody there. There are things, so because there's something for everybody there, there's something for people who know a lot about a topic and some for people who don't know as much. Again, it's good practice for reading and stamina. They share knowledge as they're having these discussions and they build vocabulary because they're getting different perspectives from different people. And again, one of the big characteristics of a text set is that it puts students at the center of their learning. And so another characteristic of text sets is that there are two different types of them. There's the vertical text set as well as the horizontal text set. So with vertical text sets, those have articles that have different levels of difficulty. So for example, it could include an article that is more scholarly. There could be an article that is more housekeeping, and then an article that's in the middle. With horizontal text sets, there are different perspectives on a topic. So for example, since we're talking about motivation, we could have an article that talks about motivation and how it relates to self-efficacy in students. We can have an article that talks about how motivation looks like with like the brain and how that looks. And then we can have an article that talks about how you can support students in building motivation in the classroom. And if you would like to learn more about that, there is this book called Reading for Understanding that will let you know more about text sets and how to carry them out. And then the next slide, please. And so here we have the steps of how to carry out the text set. So first, you're going to select a text set. Again, you're going to pick whether it's the horizontal or vertical text set, then depending on what you want the discussion to kind of go, the direction of the discussion that you want to carry out. You want to engage in their schema. So you can use a Mentimeter, a Zoom poll, a Jamboard, or like what we did, we use the KWL, right? To get that foundation of where are the students at in like their knowledge of this topic. And then you're going to allow them some time to look over the text and then choose an article to read. And then after they've had some time to read it, they're going to make meaning of these key passages together through discussion. And now that we've talked a little bit about text sets, I'm going to pass it over to Ari, and we're going to read about motivation.
Thank you, Lindsay. So we're going to delve into our text set for the day on the topic of student motivation. It's not uncommon for students to be inaccurately labeled as like lazy or unmotivated based on some uninformed assumptions. The reality is that student motivation is complicated and there's a lot that goes into it, and making those uninformed assumptions stop us from recognizing our students' needs and meeting them where they're at. So we're going to use 3 articles to take a closer look at this stuff. The first one is titled "Laziness Does Not Exist, but Unseen Barriers Do." And we have motivational perspectives on student learning. And the third, self-efficacy, helping students believe in themselves. Next slide, please. Okay, this quick reminder that if you're for any reason unable to actively engage in a breakout room today, that's like totally fine, no problem, no judgment. Just let Crystal know in the chat. And with that, also in the chat, you'll find a link to our text set with those 3 articles I mentioned. They each offer a different perspective on the topic, and they're at different lengths as well as different difficulty levels. Let's do next slide, please. So each of you will pick one article to explore more deeply by first taking a look at all 3 of them, quickly skimming, reading main parts like first, last paragraph, title, subtitle, things like that. Think back to the notes you took on the KWL chart. What do you know and what do you want to know? Which one of these articles will help you answer the questions you put in that W column? Once you've picked an article, go ahead and download it. And we're going to set a 3-minute timer for this process, and I'm going to start it now. So now that you've picked one, you're going to read it more deeply. And while you do that, keep an eye out for a golden line. A golden line is a part of the text that in some way catches your attention. This could be something that you find confusing. Maybe you can relate, it resonates with you. Maybe you agree or maybe you disagree with it. These will all make for some really cool discussion later. So definitely keep a note of your golden line as you go through the text. So before we start the reading though, we're gonna set some read together agreements. Give yourself permission to read silently in the company of others. Explore the text freely, so start and stop wherever you feel called to. And there's no pressure to finish the whole article. Also, if you'd like to, you're welcome to turn your cameras off for this part. But before we get into the reading, are there any questions?
Thank you for turning our recording back on. All right, so we are going to be heading into breakout rooms. So what's really awesome about a text set that I just absolutely love is that some folks will have read the same article and have different takeaways, and some people will have read different articles. So you get a really broad perspective of the same topic and everyone's different interpretation of the articles they read. So really rich discussion opportunity. So what you're going to do when you go into those breakout rooms is you're going to share your golden line or any other major takeaway that you had from the article. And you can think about these questions that we have here. For example, what resonated with you most? So was there something that felt like, yes, that's true, or yes, that's the experience that I have? Would you or how would you share this information with students? So how does this kind of come into play? And how does this relate to you and your role as a peer educator? So when you're helping that student and it seems like they seem really unmotivated or there's something going on, how do you actually implement anything that you've learned? Folks are going to make sure that everyone has a chance to share. So when you go into the breakout room, you don't necessarily have to have like someone timing exactly like 2 minutes, but try and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share. And if it helps, 2 minutes is about how long each person will go. Are the breakout rooms ready, Crystal?
They're ready to go. I'm just waiting to see if anybody's going to hang up on us and leave people alone in the room. And it looks like we're stable. So we're going to open them up. And then we'll see you back here in how long?
About 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes. All right. Happy talking, everybody. I'm opening up the rooms now.
Totally. So even though we might have interrupted your conversation, we definitely get to see everyone's thoughts at this point. In the chat, Lindsay is going to repaste the link to our KWL. That's what we're returning to. As already mentioned at the beginning, we do the K and the W at the very beginning to gauge like where are we at, where should we start? And then the L to see what we've learned after we've gone and had those discussions, had those conversations. So in this lovely L column, we're going to write our takeaways. So what did you learn in your breakout rooms? What was an amazing point that maybe one of your colleagues made? For example, I learned to build some early successes so that students can feel that sense of accomplishment and then build up to those harder tasks. That might be something you learned. I know in our discussion in the main room, I was talking with Lindsay Ann and Crystal. We were talking about how important it is that teachers also have high self-efficacy, which is that feeling that I can do this, right? I'm able to do this. I have the skills to do this. Because the high self-efficacy allows us more flexibility, more ability to say, you know what, I don't know, but we're going to find out together. It kind of gives folks an opportunity to model that for students and to give them permission to say the same thing. And sometimes that's motivating because they're like, look, if a professor doesn't know, if a peer educator doesn't know, you know, all the more, why don't I go explore? Now I feel really motivated to go exploring or to ask these questions and do the work. So I thought that was really awesome in our group. Would anyone else like to share? I see we already have some great ideas on here. Would anyone like to share a takeaway out loud? You can go ahead and go into your action bar and select raise hand if you'd like. I'd love to hear some ideas of what y'all talked about in the breakout rooms. Yeah, Crystal, why don't you get us started?
Always happy to kick it off. So I would love to hear about what happened in other folks' breakout rooms, and I'm loving seeing that W column or that L column. But I just want to say that was really interested in what Lindsay Ann, one of our partners, was talking about. That, you know, this conversation needs to be started deliberately and kept alive by us, because, you know, if you're not sort of like constantly pushing this conversation about like, how do we meet students where they are? How do we be more equitable? How do we think about putting students at the center? The conversation dies, right? So it's really kind of up to us as educators to make sure that we keep thinking, keep talking, and keep exploring and keep experimenting. So that really kind of motivated me to just remember to keep that at the forefront of my practice. I also see some good stuff in the chat too, that somebody said that they're going to use KWL. That's a great takeaway, right?
I love that. Yes. I'm seeing some folks in our L column. I learned the value of collaboration in a non-competitive environment in terms of creating a self-motivating space and mindset. I'm really curious about that. Whoever wrote that, would you like to share a little bit more? No pressure, but just a really interesting idea about the competitiveness and how that impacts motivation. I learned that the best way to motivate a student is communicating with them and never judging them. Yes, our judgment definitely gets in the way a lot. You know, sometimes we make those assumptions about students and it kind of disconnects us from them, right? Ari, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
I've been approaching this stuff from like a tutor's perspective, and I learned, you know, a different perspective in the breakout session, and it was from the perspective of someone who's like teaching to, you know, a group of like 100 students. How many of them can you expect yourself to like fully see and like guide and that kind of stuff? And that opened my eyes, because I don't work with that many students, you know, like especially not at once. So that was a fun thing to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of sounds like setting your own expectations and managing your own expectations in terms of engagement. Yeah, absolutely. I see some more down here. It's important to consider unseen barriers in working with students before automatically jumping to conclusions that they don't do work well or lazy or don't want to do work. Assessing their needs can help. Absolutely. That was another part of the conversation, Crystal. Lindsay and I were having was also about, you know, those basic needs. COVID kind of helped us, reminded us that basic needs, a lot of students were struggling with basic needs pre-COVID, and COVID just illuminated that and made it really clear to everyone that basic needs and safety is really the bottom, right, of Maslow's hierarchy. And if we don't have those things, it's really hard to step into the mindset and say, okay, I'm gonna go study for 3 hours, right? As your stomach is growling and you haven't eaten all day. So definitely assessing students' needs and thinking about those barriers is really important. Yeah, Crystal, go for it.
I just wanted to affirm that I saw somebody in the L column that said that they read the article that most closely resembled their experience, and so they felt affirmed rather than learned something new. And I just want to point out, good on you. That's awesome. And affirmation is learning, right? Like, so affirming something that you already knew and just sort of like reinforcing those neural pathways in your brain is totally learning. So I just wanted to shout out props to whoever wrote that. That's really incredible. Was that you, Liz? I love that. That's so good.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely. I mean, knowing that you're doing something well, or that the thing that you're doing is something everyone else kind of agrees with is successful is absolutely learning. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. All right. So definitely you can, you know, download this KWL so you can kind of see what everyone's what they learned, and kind of some of the questions you can start maybe asking yourself and reflecting on. Um, we're coming to the end, so I'm going to give the little end spiel. We are so grateful that you stuck around, and that you were here for the full session. Thank you so much for participating, getting into that KWL and all of that. We want to also say, if you have to go, that's cool. Our 3 to 4 session is over and we'll be moving into the after hours disco. So definitely, if you have to go, go. We love you. Thank you for participating. You can definitely stay, and we encourage you to stay because we are going to go over some scenarios and how to help those students. Next week, we want you to come back if you can, because next Friday we'll be talking about the tutoring cycle, and we're going to be doing some strengths training with Nico Crumpton. We also wanted to offer for you to do one of these sessions. We love to highlight the wonderful work of our colleagues across the state of California and beyond. So if you would like to do one of these, go ahead and select the link in the chat. That is the call for proposals for spring 2023. Complete the evaluation if you can. We really, really value your feedback. We implement it. We think about it as we're creating curriculum, as we're inviting folks to do this. So definitely do that evaluation. It also helps with funding to keep us doing this. And thank you so much. I see so many thank yous. I really love that.